On June 23, 2025, a date that will forever be etched in the annals of history, the Middle East's long-simmering shadow war, a conflict fought in the shadows for far too long, finally erupted into open conflict, shattering the fragile peace that barely held the region together. In a coordinated and calculated strike, Iran launched 6 ballistic missiles, each carrying a payload of destruction, and unleashed a swarm of attack drones, a dark cloud of metal and malice at strategically vital U.S. military bases in Qatar and Iraq, facilities that represent American power and influence in the region, shattering decades of uneasy restraint, a delicate balance that had prevented all-out war until now. Retaliation was swift and decisive. Within hours, Israeli warplanes, symbols of the nation's resolve, struck deep inside Iran, targeting key military sites, the nerve centers of Iranian military command, symbols of regime power, the very foundations of the ruling theocracy, and crucial nuclear facilities, the potential source of weapons that could destabilize the entire world at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, locations shrouded in secrecy and suspicion. Explosions rocked Tehran, the capital city, including the infamous Evin Prison, a place of fear and oppression, signaling a dramatic escalation, a point of no return in this dangerous game. The region was thrust to the brink, a precipice overlooking the abyss of total war, proxy skirmishes replaced by direct state-on-state warfare, a terrifying new reality. Tehran's vow that all options are on the table, a chilling threat repeated for years, now carried terrifying weight, a promise of unimaginable destruction. The world watched, holding its breath, as the fragile balance of power collapsed in a single night, leaving behind a landscape of uncertainty and fear. U.S. forces across the region went to maximum alert, a state of heightened readiness, prepared to respond to any eventuality. Israeli citizens braced for a multi-front war, a conflict that could engulf the entire nation. In Iran, the regime rallied its people, seeking to unite the nation against a common enemy, framing the attacks as defiance against American and Israeli aggression, fueling the flames of nationalism and resentment. These opening salvos could mark the start, the initial shots fired in what could become of a prolonged, devastating conflict, a war that could reshape the Middle East and beyond. Every move from here, every decision made in the coming hours and days, risks tipping the region into catastrophe, a descent into chaos and destruction. The fear is no longer about war breaking out, that was yesterday's concern. It's that it has already begun, and the world is now grappling with the consequences. No one knows how or where it will end, and that is the most terrifying prospect of all. Iran's missile barrage, a dramatic display of force, was decades in the making. A slow burn of resentment and strategic calculation. It was a response to years of bloodshed, perceived injustices, and a deep sense of humiliation on the global stage. The killing of General Qasem Soleimani in 2020, a figure of immense power and influence within Iran, left a wound that never healed, a gaping void in the Iranian leadership and a burning desire for retribution. Iranian leaders have vowed revenge ever since, promising a response that would deter future attacks and restore their nation's honor. Israel's Mossad has systematically assassinated, in operations shrouded in secrecy, Iran's top nuclear scientists, individuals crucial to the country's nuclear program, crippling its ambitions and sending a message of vulnerability that Tehran could not ignore. Sabotage and mysterious explosions, acts of alleged espionage, have plagued Iran's nuclear sites, raising questions about security and internal vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, Western sanctions have strangled its economy, creating immense pressure on the Iranian people and fueled unrest, leading to widespread discontent and challenges to the regime's authority. The regime, cornered and under siege, feeling increasingly isolated, faced threats from both outside and within, a perfect storm of internal dissent and external pressure. The final straw, another senior IRGC commander killed in Damascus, an event immediately blamed on Israel, pushing tensions to a breaking point. For Tehran, patience had run out. The time for measured responses was over. Iran's actions are calculated, a carefully considered strategy meant to re-establish deterrence and raise the cost of attacking its interests, sending a clear message to its adversaries. The missile strikes are a declaration, a bold statement of intent. The era of silent suffering is over. Iran will no longer tolerate attacks without a forceful response. Now the world waits to see with bated breath if this act of revenge will settle old scores or ignite a new, bloodier chapter in the already turbulent history of the Middle East. The stakes have never been higher, as the region teeters on the brink of wider conflict. The cycle of retaliation threatens to spiral out of control, potentially engulfing the entire region in a devastating war. Iran's next move could come from a playbook honed over decades. Its options unleash proxy forces, launch cyber attacks, strike directly with missiles and drones, or escalate to nuclear brinkmanship. Proxy warfare lets Iran strike from the shadows. Cyber warfare targets critical infrastructure worldwide. Direct attacks, like those on June 23rd, risk massive retaliation. The most dangerous card accelerating its nuclear program, threatening a global crisis. Each path carries grave risks, and the world is bracing for what comes next. Iran's true power lies in its network of proxies, the axis of resistance. Hezbollah in Lebanon, with over 150,000 rockets, can overwhelm Israel's defenses in minutes. The Houthis in Yemen threaten global shipping, capable of closing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and disrupting oil flows. Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria give Iran reach across the region, targeting U.S. forces and allies. Proxy warfare lets Iran escalate while maintaining deniability, stretching its enemies thin on multiple fronts. But by launching missiles from its own soil, Iran has signaled a willingness to fight both directly and through proxies. A coordinated assault could plunge the region into chaos, overwhelming U.S. and Israeli defenses. The digital battlefield is now as critical as the physical one. Iran's cyber army has already targeted Israel's water systems and major European banks, proving its reach. Cyber attacks could cripple power grids, airports, and financial systems in the U.S. and Israel, causing chaos far from the front lines. Oil pipelines, media, and government services are all vulnerable. As tensions rise, the risk of a devastating cyber offensive grows. For Iran, it's a way to retaliate without crossing into open war, striking at the heart of modern life. In this new era, no one is safe from the digital front lines. The conflict's shockwaves are global, rippling outwards with alarming speed. We're witnessing a cascade of consequences that extend far beyond the immediate region. The Persian Gulf's instability threatens to send oil prices soaring, creating a ripple effect throughout the global energy market. The specter of disruption looms large over this critical waterway. This in turn fueling inflation, which is already a major concern for economies worldwide. And this fuels the risk of a global recession, a downturn that could impact livelihoods and stability across the planet. Disrupted shipping could sever supply chains, creating bottlenecks and delays in the movement of goods. This could lead to shortages of essential items, impacting consumers and businesses alike. And ultimately, price spikes for everyday goods, placing a strain on household budgets and further exacerbating economic anxieties. U.S. military bases across the Middle East are now potential targets, making them vulnerable in this increasingly volatile environment, raising the risk of a wider war, a conflict that could engulf the entire region and beyond. Saudi Arabia and the UAE could be drawn in, further complicating the already complex geopolitical landscape. While China and Russia face tough choices, their decisions will have far-reaching consequences. Will they support stability, working towards de-escalation, or challenge U.S. influence, potentially exacerbating the crisis? The nightmare, a regional war spiraling into global confrontation, a scenario that was once unthinkable is now a distinct possibility. What began as a clash between Iran and Israel, a localized conflict with deep-seated roots, and the U.S., with its extensive network of alliances and strategic interests, could become a battleground for great power rivalry, a proxy war with devastating global implications. The world economy and security hang in the balance, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. As war looms, diplomacy races against time. World leaders scramble to de-escalate, offering sanctions relief or renewed talks while showing military resolve. China and Russia's next moves could tip the balance, either restraining Iran or emboldening it. The conflict is deeply personal. For Iran, it's about pride and survival. For Israel, an existential threat. For the U.S., regional stability and troop safety. Bridging these divides seems nearly impossible in a climate of fear and anger. Every decision now carries global consequences. The world stands on a precipice, hoping for a diplomatic breakthrough. The question, is there any path back from the brink, or is a new era of conflict inevitable?